Welcome to PEP Talks with Eric, the podcast where self-work becomes system work. I'm your host, Eric Ayers, creator and author of SimRx, Transforming Healthcare, Leadership, and Culture by Design. This show is your space to shift perspectives. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2 of PEP Talks with Eric. I'm your host, Eric Ayers, creator and author of SimRx. But more importantly, I'm someone walking the same path of messy, beautiful, often unspoken growth with you. If you've been here since Season 1, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you found us. You've landed in a space where we go there, into the heart, the mind, and the culture we're creating, one spark at a time. Season 1 was about shifting what's inside, breaking cycles, replacing old stories, rebuilding from burnout. Season 2, we're scaling the shift outward, from me to we. Because the deeper we go into ourselves, the more connected we become to each other. This season is about what happens when the personal becomes collective, when self-work ripples through systems, when transformation is no longer private, but relational. Today, I want to walk you through 5 sparks, 5 reframes that shaped this shift for me. Some came from pain, some from watching others awaken, some came in silence. Each spark will end with a tiny tool, a question, a prompt, a moment, not to fix you, because you do not need fixed, but to fuel you. Let's get into it. Spark 1. You are not broken. The system is misaligned. I'm reminded of a quote. Perfection is the thief of joy. Now that quote hits harder when you've lived it. About 10 years into my nursing career, I hit a moment. Professionally, I was doing well. I was competent, I was dependable, I was moving beyond my current abilities and into becoming the content expert. But emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I was flatlined. The only emotion I felt, and I mean truly felt, was anger. Anger became my armor. It protected me. It got me through impossible shifts. But it also shut me down. And then I realized it wasn't anger. It was sadness, disguised in anger. Because I wasn't laughing anymore. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't dreaming. And I wasn't climbing the ladder of success, no matter how perfect I played the game. Then my body caught up to what my soul had been trying to say this whole time. I developed a dis-ease, one that forced me to slow down. And not slow down for a weekend. Slow down for an entire year. That year became sacred. Not because it was easy. It was nowhere near easy. But because it became the container for my realignment. What I thought was a personal failure, burnout, fatigue, disconnection, was actually my system's way of screaming, this is not sustainable. And that's when it clicked. I was not broken. I was adapting to a broken system that was misaligned with who I was. And so many of us carry shame for how we've coped. But what if your burnout isn't your fault? What if it's your feedback? Let me say that again. What if your burnout isn't your failure? It's your feedback. Let that soak in for a moment. So, here's your tool. Ask yourself this question. What am I adapting to that no longer fits me? Or what am I adapting to that no longer serves me? Because you're not broken, you're becoming. And becoming starts with naming what no longer belongs. All right? You still with me? All right, rock on. So, spark number 2, from legacy to living system. The quote I'm reminded of here is, change your thoughts, change your life. And that quote sounds like a bumper sticker. And it could be an amazing bumper sticker. But there's meaning behind it, because it sounds like a bumper sticker until one day it stops you in your tracks. So there was a moment, a seemingly small moment, where something inside me cracked open. I heard myself say something and immediately realized those aren't my words. They belong to someone else. A preceptor, a leader, a parent, I don't know. I'm not sure who exactly they belong to. I just thought they were mine. I had repeated them for so long that I thought they were mine. And just like that, the thread started to unravel. Because if the words I speak aren't mine, what else have I inherited that I never questioned? In simulation, in leadership, in culture, we operate in systems built by those who came before us. That's not inherently bad. But legacy becomes a cage when it's never reimagined. And for me, the moment of noticing became a pattern of disrupting. I started to ask in every part of my work, is this still true? Is this still needed? Is this still mine? And I did this not only in my work, but I did it in my personal life. When thoughts came in that didn't fit the environment, did not fit what I was doing, is it still true? Is it still needed? Is it still mine? And that's when SimRx began to take shape. So not as a product, but as a mindset. It wasn't just about doing things differently. It was about seeing differently and then doing based on what I see. Seeing where our inherited systems were suffocating creativity or blocking healing. Seeing how simulation could live and flow, not just in a lab and in a space. Seeing how leadership didn't have to be title-based. It could be leading your family. It could be leading your colleagues, leading your client, leading your patient. Leading doesn't have to be a title. And how culture could be curated, not endured. From that moment forward, I wasn't building against the system. I was building a new one, rooted in alignment, not assumption. Because legacy might shape the past, but we, collectively we, shape what comes next. So, here's your tool. Ask yourself this: where am I doing what's always been done instead of what's actually needed? I'll repeat that. Where am I doing what's always been done instead of what's actually needed? Because this is how the shift begins, from inherited systems to intentional ones. We design these from legacy to living. So from past to future. We're able to design the future based on the past, and it starts with this huge spark. Spark number 3, design with, not for. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. That quote's attributed to Einstein. And that quote has hung behind me on that wall for a while now. It began in my office. It was a gift from my wife. This is one of my favorite quotes. And this quote had been there for years, but one day I actually saw it. We were in the early days of what would eventually become SimRx. We were designing for nurses, and it was going well. It was going great, actually. And then one of our techs approached me with an idea. She said, "Oh, what if we had something like this for splinting?" She wasn't a nurse. She didn't have the title. But what she had was insight. That moment was electric. I felt like I was 5 years old again, and someone new had just walked up and said, "Do you want to play?" That's what I felt. So we gave her the space, we gave minimal supplies, and our full support. And what she built not only worked, it became the new standard for tech education in our department, in her department. Even more, it seeded what would become the SimRx carts. So she planted this seed for us by thinking outside of what we were doing. And that's the power of designing with people, not for them. Empowerment isn't something you give. It's something you simply make space for. Co-creation is not about delegation. It's about dignity. And when you stop trying to solve for everyone and start building with them, you stop designing solutions and start cultivating systems that actually fit. So here's your tool. Ask yourself this question. Who needs to be in the room when change is imagined? All right, I'll say it again. Who needs to be in the room when change is imagined? Because genius doesn't live in org charts. It lives in the people who know the work, feel the pain, and hold the wisdom. You want transformation? Pull up another chair and ask, "Want to play?" That's how we change the world. Spark number 4. You can build without permission. Ooh. All right. This was a big one for me. The quote that comes into mind here is, "Do we have anything to practice port access on before I carry out this order?" It's been a few months since I've done it. It's not the needle. That part's easy. It's the 12 steps before that I'm foggy on. This one question, this one quote, which came from a nurse who was asking me a question about practicing, it changed everything. Because we did not have a port trainer to train just in time whenever we needed to. We didn't have a simulation room. We didn't have time. But what we did have was the urgency to say, this can't wait for the perfect setup. So we got scrappy. We dug into old policies and pieced together the steps. We scavenged expired supplies, and within a week, a simple kit was built. Plastic container, instructions, and a video script. We brought it to her. She practiced. She reflected. She showed up differently. And her next patient noticed. They said, "Do you work in the clinic? Because you were amazing. You have to work there." So the clinic, the Hemont clinic, nurses access ports all the time. They do this continuously, and they're really good at it. In the emergency department, we don't. And so we get scrappy with it. She did it so well, she aligned with the practice of the Hemont clinic. That's competency. And that's what competency feels like to both sides of the needle. That's what happens when we stop waiting for permission and start building what's actually needed. SimRx was not born in a lab. It was born at the bedside with a nurse, a problem, and a question. Innovation doesn't always wear a lab coat. Sometimes it wears scrubs and carries a lunchbox. It's not about having the perfect plan. It's about moving anyway, with clarity, courage, and the container. So here's your tool when you find yourself in this situation. What's one problem I'm ready to prototype today? Because waiting for the system to catch up means people fall behind. The most powerful innovations don't start with a budget. They start with a moment. And that moment's right now. Spark number 5. Healing systems begins with healing ourselves. We cannot heal when we're being chased by a tiger, even if it's a metaphorical tiger. For me, the tiger was everything I'd refused to feel. The unspoken grief, the constant pressure to be perfect, the fear of being found out as not enough. And underneath all that, a body in survival mode. Cortisol had become my constant companion, not because of one dramatic moment, but because of years of micro-stress, of bracing, performing, adapting, pretending. Eventually, my gut gave out. But not just physically, my instincts, my compass, my sense of center, gone. And I remember realizing my systems weren't just sick. They were mirroring the chaos I was swimming in. I was trying to heal out there without healing in here. That year of forced pause I spoke about in Spark number 1, it cracked something open in me. It invited me back into my body to notice, to listen, to stop outsourcing my worth to a broken pace and a broken system. Healing did not come from a guru or a course or a book. It came from breath, from food, from stillness, from reconnecting with joy, with spirit, with self. And once I could feel again, I could lead again. You can't scale compassion from depletion. You can't model competency from disconnection. And you can't build systems that heal if you're still running from tigers. We lead best when we lead from the overflow of our cup. So here's your tool. Ask yourself, where can I offer grace today? To myself or someone else? Say it again. Where can I offer grace today? To myself or someone else? Because systems don't heal policy. They heal from people who are healing, from wholeness, from presence, from you. All right, bonus spark. Remember to bring along the fun. This is probably the most important one of all. Fun is our permission to commingle our genius with the genius of others, thus creating a masterpiece of co-collaborative, human-centric innovation, which is ultimately the prescription for human connection in the workplace. So every day at work is bring your 5-year-old self to work day. And the more you can bring that 5-year-old self with you, the bigger impact you have on this planet. Not just your work, but your world. The biggest lesson I have learned up to this point is to bring the fun with me wherever I go, especially in the mundane tasks or roles we find ourselves in, which, by the way, were not so mundane when we first began them. At that time, they were fun, exciting, new, unfamiliar. So shifting to curiosity is our path through this, because that's what our mind was on when we began this role. We were curious to learn the job. So if we find ourselves thinking, oh, this is mundane, there's no purpose behind this, shift to a curious mindset and get back into that focus of when you started, and things will shift. So when my 5-year-old is invited to join the group, everything, and I mean everything, changes. So I suggest we turn the mundane into the fundane. And here's your tool for changing the mundane to the fundane. Ask yourself, What would my 5-year-old self do right now if I gave him or her permission? I'm going to ask again. What would my 5-year-old self do right now if I gave him or her permission? And whatever that is, I suggest you move in that direction, because that is creating an emotion, an energy in motion. And if you follow that emotion, it'll lead you back to alignment. So let's take a breath. Take a breath with me. You just lit 6 sparks. And here's the truth most people never say out loud. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need permission to heal. And you don't need a perfect plan to begin. Because every system we've ever admired, every culture that felt alive and aligned, was built by people willing to go first. People like you. The moment we stop waiting and start becoming, the shift begins. That's the spark. And that spark becomes the bridge. From isolation to community. From burnout to purpose. From me to we. And if Ubuntu teaches us anything, it's this. I am because we are. But there's more. There's a mirror hidden inside of Ubuntu that shows us we are because I am. The moment you show up whole, you make it safer for the rest of us to do the same. And that's what happened to me. I was out on a hike one day, and Ubuntu was infusing through my body. And I was repeating out loud, I am because we are. I am because we are. And I was feeling the human connection. And I was feeling how I connected to others and earth. And all of a sudden came into my mind, I am because we are. We are because I am. And I dropped to my knees, tears coming out of my eyes, because I realized that this connection is not a one-way path. It's not me receiving from everything around me, but it's also me giving my value, my worth, my amazingness to the world as well. And not amazingness as a selfishness. Amazingness as, because I've been able to collectively expand and grow from the world, I'm now able to offer that back to the world. So when it clicked, it didn't just change my life, it changed everything around me. That's the power of one person aligned. That's how we transform systems. Not through perfection, but through presence. Not through theory, but through becoming. So as you move through the week, light the sparks, be the bridge, and remember the mirror. Please join us next time. And until then, be well, be loved. Thank you for listening to Pep Talks with Eric. If something sparked today, pass it forward. Remember to subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. Keep doing the thing. Keep showing up. You're not alone in this. And we're not whole without you. I'll see you next time.